Oh boy, Mozilla, are you okay? I hate to do this because I think Mozilla is actually an organization full of great, well-intentioned folks, and at least on paper, I love their mission. But Mozilla's leadership makes the most baffling mistakes, and they do so with such regularity, not to mention so publicly, it's hard to not be concerned. So a few weeks ago, Mozilla published an article, AI the Firefox Way, and it got me, as well as Mozilla's community, bent out of shape. I posted an article over on the Bryant review about it, and, well, it got a huge response. But this week, Mozilla got a new CEO. His name is Anthony Enzor-DeMeo, and he posted an inaugural article about how Firefox is going to become an AI browser. And really, it's all of Mozilla's greatest blunders. I mean, hits in one article. You know, it pays lip service to the Mozilla manifesto. It talks about how Mozilla needs to become a trusted software company. And it even mentions how Mozilla needs to free itself from the search deal. All of that sounds great, but realistically, it's just deception. It's a smoke and mirrors play for more money at the expense of their mission and the integrity of the organization. And it all comes down to Firefox becoming an AI browser. Now, I clearly have a lot to say on this topic. AI and machine learning is actually something I'm very interested in. So I'd ask that you indulge me for a moment. I mean, this is quite possibly the longest scripted video I've ever produced, and for good reason. I believe it's also possibly one of the most important videos I'll ever make. And it's not all doom and gloom. Like, I'm not as dour on machine learning as I was on, say, cryptocurrency, because unlike the blockchain, I believe there are real, practical, beneficial use cases for machine learning. And I want to review those before we get into the news this week, because honestly, we need to set a baseline. We need to understand what the quote-unquote ethical use cases for AI are, how Firefox could implement AI in the browser within those parameters, and more importantly, how Firefox's current AI scheme is not only a violation of ethical use cases, but it's fundamentally at odds with Mozilla's manifesto, and how their design philosophy regarding AI is an existential threat to their organization. I've gone on the record many times as an AI skeptic, but the question is why? And it's because the entire industry reeks of the move fast and break things mentality. Coupled with that is the all too common cult of personality that you see everywhere in the tech world, and it just all screams classic Silicon Valley scam, at least to me. But all of this is clearly an attempt to get your clueless senator, who's been in and out of hospice for the last decade, to grant them a legal monopoly over artificial intelligence. And that's not even factoring in all the fear-mongering about how these chatbots could, at any moment, sprout sentience and kill us all. Thankfully, from my understanding of this tech, that's not how any of this works. Frankly, chatbots and image and video generators, they are an evolutionary dead end, at least if the goal is true artificial general intelligence. But what's worse, though, is that these carnival barkers at the top of the industry, they know this all too well, but they can't admit it because the whole AI world is built on a foundation of deception, hype, and accounting trickery. They have no choice but to continue ratcheting up the hysteria so they can profit from popular fear over the tech that they're building. I cannot stress this enough, though. None of this is new. None of these companies have invented anything. Not the machine learning algorithms, not the chatbot user experience, not the hype train nonsense. Heck, they didn't even invent the swashbuckling approach to stealing the web's public data. This technology has been around for quite some time, and not just theoretically either. Well before the AI hype train set phasers to maximum stupid and ketamine was the drug du jour of the Altman likes, there were serious researchers poking and prodding at machine learning algorithms. The Altman likes don't want you to know this, but YouTube has been using machine learning speech-to-text generation to automatically caption videos for YouTube for over 16 years. Same with Google Translate and many other language-based services. Like I said earlier, there is nothing new about this technology. The maths have been around for over half a century. The algorithm that powers autocorrect and text prediction on your smartphone's virtual keyboard, that's basically functionally indistinguishable from what powers ChatGPT. The only difference being that ChatGPT consumes a small corner of the Amazon rainforest as it's helping you cheat on your homework. And, I recall using StumbleUpon way back in the day. And when, that was still a thing. If you don't know, StumbleUpon was a browser extension with a little button that you could click, and it would take you to a cool, random website based on interests that you pre-selected. And way, way back in the early 2010s, I stumbled my way to Google Deep Dream. Deep Dream was machine learning image generation, while the founder of Midjourney was still in diapers, probably. Kaleidoscopic fractals, starry night meshed with puppy faces, pareidolia codified in the electric dreams of Google's spare compute power, all the way back in 2014. Again, I must stress, none of this is new. Even locally run models were a thing. Back in 2017, when I visited System 76 for their Legend of the Lake Superfan event, they had local AI models transmogrifying webcam input into whatever this is. The only real breakthrough with AI has been NVIDIA and Microsoft's $100 billion accounting trick, and even that isn't novel. So the only real interest that I have in the fear-mongering of the AI machine is calling it out for being a load of hooey. I'm not interested in the liars and the frauds like Sam Altman. I'm interested in tech that is good and useful to humanity. And there are real and amazing applications for so-called consumer-facing machine learning tech. And I think that it's critical right now to draw a distinction between the AI hype and the BS, and then the reality of machine learning. And make no mistake about it, it's easy to succumb to cynicism. Seemingly every service is jamming useless chatbots into their apps and sites, and it just makes no sense. And the fact that their chatbots are universally worse than the search bars that they're replacing, yeah, it's clearly very bad. So when you hear AI, it's almost forgivable to be jaded, to give into the cynicism and think all AI is just stupid. And that's why for the rest of this video, unless I'm talking about a product name or a specific feature, I'm going to be referring to the good tech as machine learning or ML from here on out. And I do need to acknowledge that whether we're talking about AI or machine learning, most of the major developments over the last few years have only been possible due to the theft of online artistry. It's difficult to audit the provenance of data used to train these models, even the ones that I'm going to talk about. So I want to make it clear, and I want to point out that I'm not hand-waving away, nor am I condoning the copyright infringement that has definitely occurred in the training of contemporary models. But the question now is, what can machine learning actually do? And machine learning is capable of some awesome stuff. See, you can train a neural algorithm on a massive set of sample data, and then it's able to transform inputs based on that data, almost like magic. In very specific use cases, machine learning is a wonderful tool that enables things that are hard or even impossible to do with other types of software. One great example is automatic audio transcription. As I mentioned earlier, YouTube has been using it for years, but other apps have been rolling it out recently. My favorite example, since it's one that I'm using with increasing regularity, is DaVinci Resolve Studio's AI audio transcription. Picture this. You have a machine learning model that is entirely optional and is not in any way foisted upon users against their will, transcribe the audio of long video clips. Then the audio is fully searchable using an existing and proven search algorithm that doesn't lie to you. What a concept, huh? Well, that's exactly what the AI transcribe feature does. But not only that, after you search the transcript, you can then highlight text like you would in a word processor. Highlighting the text will then set the in and out points of the clip in question, and it enables you to just drag the highlighted phrase into your timeline.
De-renderings that will allow you to feel your space. It will feel just like your home.
It makes editing so much simpler. And DaVinci also has other related tools like AI subtitle generation, which is how I'm able to quickly and accurately generate subtitles for my PeerTube videos. And I have to apologize because I'm going to mention another machine learning tool in DaVinci Resolve, and it's because, surprisingly, this proprietary video editing software is actually one of the more ethical implementations of AI tools. This one is called AI voice isolation. So here's a good example. I edited the first episode of the Main Famous podcast, their 4th season, and I edited it last week. And one of the microphones was picking up a high-pitched squealing. I didn't notice it while we were on location, and if this had been just a few years ago, I would have had to do hours of audio cleanup work, and the results would have been pretty bad. And that's if the results were even usable. There's no guarantee that they would have been. But today, it's no problem. I just passed the audio through DaVinci's AI voice isolation filter, and it cleaned it right up. Now, I'm going to play a quick sample of it here, and there is a very high-pitched noise. It's very annoying, and it might set some people off, so you can skip ahead about 17 seconds if you don't want to hear it.
I think for me, it was the combination of all of these great sort of geographic features. I think for me, it was the combination of all of these great sort of geographic features.
That wouldn't have been possible 3 years ago. And the fact that I can confidently just solve this issue with the click of a single switch in DaVinci's interface, and this AI model is running locally on my machine, you can't beat that, guys. Now, I'll spare you some of the other awesome machine learning tools that DaVinci Resolve Studio ships. Suffice it to say, there are some time-saving features that reduce the tedium of certain tasks and that empower users to recover otherwise unusable footage, all while adding to the creative process and critically not robbing us of it. Then there's Affinity's products, which are also quite good. And Affinity, like DaVinci, offer entirely optional machine learning models that assist with tedious tasks and make creation easier. Object selection is the big feature here. It's not perfect, it's not even close, but it can do the heavy lifting for 80% of the photos that I've thrown at it. What do I mean? Well, the model analyzes the image, again, totally locally on your machine, and then it lets you select content in the image. Hovering your cursor over different objects in the photo will display a preview of what will be selected. Then just click on the object to make that selection. Then you can apply a mask to that selection or whatever. You can also add other objects to your selection by holding the Shift key and clicking. It's a pretty neat feature. Though it should be noted that the image that you're seeing right now is an example of how it can go wrong. The low contrast between my shirt and the background results in the machine learning model selecting a wonky shape where my shoulder should be. But it gets you most of the way there, and while cleanup is almost always necessary, it's usually less work to clean up the selection than it would be to use the spline tool to trace a sharp edge around the object. But I can hear you asking, these are proprietary apps. What about free and open source software? And thankfully, most open source software isn't falling for the principles of enshittification that have mandated the AI shittification of everything. But that's not to say that useful machine learning tools aren't being embraced by FOSS applications. Nextcloud, for example, has Recognize, a Nextcloud app that enables facial recognition as well as object recognition in your photos. Admittedly, the models could use a bit of fine-tuning, but it's not bad. Again, this is entirely optional and entirely local, and importantly, this is a critical feature if we want a self-hostable app like Nextcloud to work as a drop-in replacement for Google Photos or iCloud for your mom and dad, you know? Once you have it enabled, it's also 100% automatic. You don't even need a GPU to use it. And then there are some interesting things on the horizon. For example, the next major version of Audacity will be able to use some open generative audio models created by Intel. That should be very interesting, but given how huge the next Audacity update is going to be, I'd be surprised if we see it before Q3 of 2026. Still though, it's in the pipeline. However, there is an elephant in the room, or should I say, a fox on fire. Now, I've criticized Firefox, a free and open source web browser, for incorporating AI into the browsing experience. What gives? What's the difference? Well, you may have noticed that DaVinci, Affinity, Nextcloud, and Audacity use models that are entirely optional. You opt into using these features by downloading the model to your PC after you've installed the app, and then you run the model locally on your machine. My very first rule of ethical AI use is that it must be local. If your AI is running on Azure, Google Cloud, or AWS, it is categorically unethical. It'd be one thing, heck, I'd probably even be excited about it, if there were a 3 GB Firefox model that you could choose to download and it would execute on your own GPU. But guess what? Mozilla's solution for AI in your browser is to foist the well-known, highly proprietary AI as a service hucksters onto their end users. ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and Copilot. You know, the flat earthers of the machine learning world. And not only that, but Mozilla, to reiterate, the creators of the free and open source Firefox, the inventors of the Rust programming language, the organization that proclaims itself to be the protector of the free and open web, doesn't even provide a way to use a local LLM like Llama, Quant, or DeepSeek. Your choices are Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, or Anthropic. All of them proprietary. And you'd better thank them too, because they're giving you choices. Earlier this year, they had a blog post that introduced the AI sidebar, and it gave you the option of logging into and using proprietary cloud-based chatbots. The sidebar is basically a split pane view with a chatbot on the left and a web page on the right. And the AI sidebar stays open while switching between tabs. What's in this sidebar? Well, it's literally just ChatGPT or some other bot's web interface. It also has a feature where you can ask the AI to summarize the current page. Hilariously, when recording the B-roll for this video, I got a warning message saying that the summary is only a partial summary of the page because the content of the page is too long. As if this wasn't useless enough, what's the point of summarizing the contents of a short page? I mean, the longer the page is, the more useful it would be to have an AI summarize the contents of the page. What a joke. This is so crazy. Also, a killer feature is that when you're selecting text in the page, it'll show a little sparkle emoji, and if you hover over it, it'll show you options like summarize, explain this, quiz me, and proofread. A feature like this would be fine for, a browser extension or maybe even a proprietary web browser, but for Firefox, how does this make any sense? Has literally anyone outside of Mozilla's leadership asked for a feature like this? I mean, for God's sakes, for Mozilla to build such a feature into Firefox, it's genuinely upsetting. And allow me to explain. Number one, and maybe this is just me, but I struggle to imagine how this feature could possibly be useful to anybody. Number two, if it's not useful to end users and it's not being demanded by end users, it's therefore just a waste of their developers' time and, more importantly, the organization's resources. But number three, worst of all, this is Mozilla co-signing big AI players. I have to reiterate, the options on offer here are Anthropic, OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, and Mistral. The supported services are exclusively cloud-based proprietary clankers, and make no mistake, this is unequivocally Mozilla endorsing these companies. Companies that have made their bag from theft and harm and insider collusion. And don't worry, we'll get to all that in a minute. And as I mentioned, there's no OLAMA here, and there's no way to tie Mozilla into a local AI API, for example. What happened to Principle 6 of your guys' manifesto, which states, the effectiveness of the internet as a public resource depends upon interoperability, innovation, and decentralized participation worldwide. Now, to Mozilla's credit, these features can be turned off, but it seems to be on by default, and that's its own barrel of problematic worms. But this brings me to Mozilla's other investment into AI. Mozilla posted an article about their latest AI in your browser innovation, the AI window, which is basically like private browsing, but with an AI companion instead. The feature is not available to the general public yet, so I haven't been able to try it out, but it's described as a new, intelligent, user-controlled space we're building in Firefox that lets you chat with an AI assistant and get help while you browse. All on your terms. Completely opt-in, you have full control, and if you try it and find it's not for you, you can choose to switch it off. Hey, at least you can turn it off, guys. Now they're framing all of this as a choice, as if they're doing us a favor by including the option to subject your browsing experience to the watchful eye of ChatGPT or Gemini, or hey, maybe Copilot if that's more your flavor. These are AIs that are provably and actively hostile to the best interest of their users. For God's sakes, Mozilla, what are you thinking? This is so deeply out of touch. And look, I am willing to consider that maybe I'm the one that's out of touch. Maybe the future of the web is 99% AI trash. Maybe the future of the web really is attention illiterate people who need quality content digested through sloppy AI filters. Maybe the future of the internet looks like human beings fully relinquishing control of our computers and just letting the bots run themselves. You know, as we hypnotically, listlessly watch on in mild, vaguely entertained bemusement. All hail the AI algorithm. I don't know, all that sounds rather antithetical to principles 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 of the Mozilla Manifesto, at least by my count. See, Mozilla postures itself as a defender of the internet, an advocate for the rights of the everyman, and a champion of free software. Yet I cannot for the life of me reconcile Mozilla's purported mission with the introduction of AI slot bots into Firefox, funded by Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, and Anthropic. So let's go a little deeper, shall we? You can teach a parrot to say any number of things. You can teach it to say nice things to your guests. You can train it to say, Polly want a cracker. You could train it to repeat an off-color joke or even replicate offensive slurs. But no matter what you teach it to say, the parrot does not understand the meaning of its own words. To the parrot, it's just noise. AI is like that parrot, though it's a dangerous parrot that's capable of convincingly chatting with users, but also of persuading, lying, and causing actual harm, all without any consciousness, lacking any understanding, and having no culpability. Who's responsible when an AI lies? I mean, it's physically, algorithmically, and philosophically incapable of understanding what it says, nor can it grasp the implications of its actions. The less informed can be forgiven for mistaking the words of a chatbot as coming from an intelligence. After all, our minds evolved in a world where language was exclusively of anthropic origin. So instinctually to us, if it can convincingly chat with us, it has to have at least some level of intelligence, right? Surely it has to understand what it's saying. But the fact is, it doesn't, and this is the inherent flaw with the Turing test. AI chatbots are no more intelligent than, and at least from a technological standpoint, functionally indistinguishable from, the autocorrect on your phone's virtual keyboard. And incorporating such an inherently deceptive technology into Firefox is a violation of everything the organization stands for. The current LLM models we have, and I'm talking all of them, were trained on stolen or otherwise unethically sourced data. Meta pirated over 80 terabytes worth of ebooks from torrent sites in order to train their llama models. OpenAI says that it is impossible to train AI without using copyrighted materials. They also trained their image and video generation models on copyrighted characters, going so far as to allow end users to generate content featuring these protected works, at least initially, to generate buzz and controversy. The Altman-likes know full well what they are doing. In truth, AI models don't just require copyright infringement in order to be trained, they are inextricably fueled by content theft. And while I'm not going to shed a tear if Disney's or Nintendo's copyrights are violated, if you're an independent artist of any stripe, an essayist, a vlogger, a musician, or you're otherwise creative on the web, your content has been straight up stolen, all with the intent of replacing you with AI slop, to edge you out of your livelihood in exchange for the Altman-likes to profit from that theft. It is a crime, and these massive for-profit companies must be held accountable. But it also means that AIs trained on stolen and infringing content are unethical and at odds with Mozilla's manifesto. For Mozilla to incorporate this technology into their browsers from these organizations that benefit exclusively from this theft is Mozilla co-signing this theft. Cloud-based AI in the browser is also a massive privacy concern. For those who don't know, Proton is a company that is well known and largely well respected in the online privacy space. Back in October, they published a thread on the Hell site about the rise of so-called agentic web browsers with AI baked in. It's a fascinating and eye-opening read that I highly recommend. The privacy implications here, though, are both massive and, more worryingly, not even fully understood. Truthfully, AI integration in Firefox, at least in its current form, is not on the same level as ChatGPT's Atlas or Perplexity's Comet browsers. But realistically, where is this going to end? And how does the AI window meaningfully distinguish itself from Atlas or Comet, especially when it just ties into these services' AI chatbots? And again, I have to ask, does anyone even want these features? See, the value proposition of an AI chatbot, let alone an agentic browser companion, is pretty weak from the start. Part of the reason AI is usually restricted to a cloud-based service is because it takes some pretty seriously powerful hardware, enormous resources, and not to mention deep pockets to keep the slop wheel a-turnin'. And for what? I'm legitimately asking. So that we can keep machines that can deceive powered on indefinitely? So your web browser can whisk away control from you and rob you of your agency? So you can hand over your autonomy to some virtually intelligent cloud service? Again, I'm asking, in exchange for what? Many services, including the most popular websites and apps that you rely on, explicitly forbid accessing their service through automation. Their terms of service expressly prohibit the use of their websites by non-humans. And while accessing a website in violation of its terms of service is not strictly illegal, there is an argument to be made that it is violating the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. That's exactly what agentic AI in the web browser will enable. Trivial, habitual violation of the US's Computer Fraud and Abuse Act of 1986. And the browser vendor is not going to be the one on the hook for the actions taken by your agentic buddy. You will be. What do I mean? Well, Amazon recently sent a letter to Perplexity, insisting that their Comet browser was in violation of the CFAA by allowing their AI to buy products from the Amazon store on behalf of users. Now, this isn't a lawsuit, as far as I know, at least not yet. But if agentic AI in the browser has even techno-feudalist overlords like Jeff Bezos upset, that's concerning, and he's one of the guys who is profiting from slot machines. See, many websites, especially those with high-quality content, have strict rules that prohibit AI web crawlers from accessing their services. For example, I have a robots.txt file on the Bryant review that tells AI crawlers they are unwelcome. I've also taken steps to secure my site behind an anti-scraping proxy service, all in an attempt to prevent AI web crawlers from stealing our content and training on it. In the letter from Amazon's lawyers, link below, they demanded, quote, Perplexity must stop disguising Comet as a Google Chrome web browser. Transparently identify Comet AI agents, collectively Comet AI, whether deploying through the Perplexity AI interface, the assistant sidebar, or any other means, while operating in the Amazon store, as is required by Amazon's conditions of use, and respect decisions Amazon makes regarding agentic activity in the Amazon store. You've got to ask yourself, why is Perplexity hiding Comet behind a Google Chrome user agent string? I recently also found out that OpenAI's Atlas didn't change the user agent either. It's partly because they don't want web servers to be able to detect the browser and block them, though my plan was to detect AI browsers and serve a honeypot of links to useless garbage instead. But make no mistake, these agentic browsers are pretending they're still Chrome so that they can evade robots.txt and other mitigations against our content being stolen. Now, I think the most concerning part of all of this is the lack of perspective on the part of Mozilla's leadership. And what do I mean? Well, the whole AI craze is nothing more than a speculative bubble, purposefully instigated and propped up by NVIDIA and Microsoft to artificially inflate their stock prices. If you don't believe me, you might have seen that back in September, NVIDIA announced a $100 billion investment in OpenAI. But the problem is, OpenAI's models run exclusively on NVIDIA GPUs. So NVIDIA is giving OpenAI money so that OpenAI can turn around and buy NVIDIA GPUs? Explain to me how that's not a post-capitalistic Ouroboros. Or perhaps this is the prelude to a bust that sparks the second Great Depression. Why not both? Meanwhile, Microsoft has hopped on the AI hype train to transform Windows 11 into an agentic operating system, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. And they've been investing billions of their own ill-gotten gains to have their say in the future of OpenAI. This has resulted in record stock prices for both companies. And other companies have blindly followed the AI siren's call, seeing an opportunity for both record profits and false growth. Heck, if they could get away with renaming their company to something blockchain to inflate their valuation back in 2018, why shouldn't they just cram AI into their existing products to do the same thing? Who cares if it makes their products worse in the process? If their company crashes, their executives have golden parachutes, guys. But all of the AI slop in everything, this is something that more and more folks are growing sick of. So now we turn to the thrust of this video. People are getting tired of the worthless sparkle emojis everywhere. They're seeing that the emperor has no clothes. In other words, nobody at the end of 2025 is asking for these kinds of anti-features. And the idea that Firefox, a free and open source browser, would be shoving proprietary AI into, again, a free and open source browser, it's patently offensive, and it runs counter to their manifesto. For Mozilla to implement these proprietary chatbots into Firefox shows just how truly disconnected they are from their user base. It shows that Mozilla's priorities are not aligned with ours, and I'm concerned it shows that Mozilla's leadership are in lockstep with the fickle, fleeting fads of a wasteful, selfish, destructive, and corrupt tech industry. I see their eagerness to add AI to Firefox as a reckless and irresponsible move that is simultaneously at odds with the spirit of free and open source software, but also with everything that they claim to value. Now, I'm saying all of this because I believe in the ideals that Mozilla puts forth in their manifesto. Ideas like the internet is a global public resource that must remain open and accessible. The internet must enrich the lives of individual human beings. The effectiveness of the internet as a public resource depends on interoperability, innovation, and decentralized participation worldwide. And especially, individuals must have the ability to shape the internet and their own experiences on it. Lord knows, we need an internet hero, now more than ever. And Mozilla should be that hero, at least on paper. Yet for all their posturing, I lament the last 21 years of their existence. And they're not going to realize their vision of a better internet by adding slot bots to their browser, regardless of if it's agentic or not. Mozilla should be focusing on becoming financially independent from Google, and not by getting on board with the barons of enshittification at OpenAI and Anthropic. They should be building features that their users actually need, supporting modern web standards, working to improve the lives of netizens, reclaiming that David versus Goliath spirit of their old Netscape days. They should be focused on expanding their rapidly declining market share, taking up the mantle of leadership, and fighting the corrupting influences of big tech, not kowtowing to it. And finally, advocating for privacy and digital rights. They should not be trying to bamboozle users with flashy, valueless, and malignant features like AI chatbots in the browser. They should leave the AI fleecing to publicly traded companies trying to artificially inflate their stock price. This kind of behavior has no place in the FOSS world. Now, you've probably heard about the AI bubble, but what is a bubble? An economic bubble is a period where current asset prices greatly exceed their intrinsic valuation. Bubbles can be caused by overly optimistic projections about sales and sustainability of growth, and or by the belief that intrinsic valuation is no longer relevant when making an investment. Many a bubble occurs when investors, usually ignorant, put wads upon gobs of cash into assets that they don't understand, inflating the price well beyond any real value the asset might have. And while bubble might be a cute little euphemism, I think a more accurate word for it would be a death spiral. See, ants leave a trail of pheromones that help guide their fellow ants back to their colony. Basically, a death spiral is when ants get locked into marching in a circle. The problem is, in a death spiral, the pheromones laid down that are meant to lead individuals back to the colony end up misleading everyone in a circle. The more ants join the circle, the stronger and stronger the pheromones grow. They get high on their own supply, as it were, and they're never able to find their way back to the colony. Most of them end up dead. That's what I believe is going on with AI. But instead of ants, it's the tech leadership and investors. And instead of pheromones, it's Special K. So what happens when the AI bubble pops? Well, Jensen Huang is going to be fine. He'll move on to his next scam, likely something equally as stupid as Bitcoin, the metaverse, and AI chatbots. But the tech industry will have to wake up from its years-long AI bender and step over the headstones of brands like Crucial and Samsung's SATA SSD division. We'll have to collectively reconcile with the trillions of dollars in wasted capital, lost investments, and ruined 401ks, and fess up to the technological dead end that was AI chatbots. Interestingly, though, we will have thousands of ML models just kind of laying around. Models that were discarded before ever seeing even modest attempts at optimization because there was a newer, shinier model with more features to distract us. And maybe when all the hype subsides, when the chatbot moment is an embarrassing footnote in the history books and we've recovered from the economic apocalypse that arose from our AI stupor, machine learning's intrinsic value will finally be judiciously and ethically embraced where it makes sense. All of this is to say that if Mozilla really wanted to show us a way forward with machine learning, they should follow the model that has been laid out by Nextcloud or DaVinci Resolve. It's not lost on me pointing out the irony of a proprietary app like DaVinci or Affinity being a better model for ethical AI usage than Firefox, guys. In the article that Mozilla's new CEO posted this week, he said that Mozilla needs to diversify their revenue beyond search. And while I agree, it seems like his intention to move beyond search is just to bring OpenAI and Anthropic into that fold, rather than freeing themselves from big tech. What they should be doing is building products that users and new users alike not only want to use, but even would be willing to pay for. But that's not what's happening here. Again, this is Mozilla, right? They invented the Rust programming language. They've done real ethical research into machine learning. It's not like they're incapable of making good tech. This is the real existential threat to Mozilla. Instead of reclaiming their position as an internet insurgency, fighting for a free and open source web, they're bandwagoning with the barons of enshittification. And when the wheels of the AI slop wagon fall off, when the clanker bubble bursts and the money dries up, where will Mozilla be then? In Anthony's introduction post, he stressed the need for Mozilla to focus on becoming a trusted software company. Those are his words, and I agree. However, Mozilla bending the knee to the Altman likes shows just how deranged and disconnected the entire leadership class of the tech industry truly is. The fact that they can't see through the hype and they're all marching in lockstep with the AI death spiral proves that they have no vision or judgment to lead. It's time for real change, now more than ever. And based on his introductory post alone, I, for one, am lodging a vote of no confidence in Anthony Enzor-DeMeo's leadership of Mozilla.